think a lot of us saw this coming. I mean, way back in 2019 when Soyuz released the first launcher. So I am so excited to check out this Launcher Deluxe because it's pretty much everything I could ask for from this really cool and unique design. The biggest thing that this does, and that I'm going to focus on, is that it's got the normal launcher mode, and there's two channels, but there's also another circuit in it called Saturate mode. And basically, that allows you to pass phantom power to microphones if you actually want to use normal condenser mics or anything. If you saw some of my other videos where I had to use an external phantom power supply to use normal condenser mics with my single launcher, you don't have to do that anymore. It's still passive, it's not adding any gain to the circuit when you're in saturate mode, but it does add the transformer and the color. So more options. The biggest thing though is you can easily send line level signals through that. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. One thing I want everyone to keep in mind is subtlety. If anyone's ever worked with tape or any other cool analog gear, there's some pieces of gear that you can push really hard and get a lot of great color from. If you've ever worked on bigger analog consoles similar to my API console or an SSL or a Neve, I think once you work with them over the years, you realize that, subtlety is the key to getting the best out of that gear. Stacking analog color very, discreetly as you go along on every single path builds up into something much larger. So why don't we take a listen to this real quick, and I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to switch between two files and see if you hear a difference.
But this bad blood takes a while to wash off. Another life, two sprouts of alfalfa, reaching out untethered for the sun, swaying back and forth to the music, before the earth stood still in 2021. As I
Now it's subtle, but there is a difference. I could hear a difference, but it's not night and day, but it is really interesting. So we're going to come back to that. But what I want to do now is we're going to go through a song and just bounce some individual stems through the launcher in saturate mode. Again, it's going to be subtle on individual things. So, kind of get your listening ears out and really focus. But I think by the end of the video, once we start stacking things, it's going to make a bigger difference. So let's go through some really individual instruments in a song.
woke up just like yesterday morning, and the morning before, and the one before that. I've been trying to have some healthier habits, but that don't mean I'm trying to win you back. So want you to know that now I'm trying. I'm mostly better now, the occasional cough.
So we went back and forth and we passed each of those individual stems through the Launcher Deluxe in the Saturate mode. Now what I want to do is we're going to take the digital bounce of those files, and then we're going to take a bounce where I took each of those stems that passed through the launcher and then take that launchered mix and send it through the launcher one more time, kind of like a stem mixer. So we're going to go between the full digital and the full cool Soyuz stem and master bus mix. Again, I hate to repeat myself, but subtlety is key, and there are some cool subtle differences there. Soyuz has done a really good job of gain staging this and designing the gain stage so that you really have to push it hard in order to get some audible distortion. So what I want to do now is just take that same mix, the Soyuz mix, and just push it really hard through that, like you're pushing an analog console. I'm going to push it a little too hard just so you can kind of hear what happens. And especially with this mix, the kick drum is pretty loud in the drums in general in this pass, so kind of listen to the low end of the drums and hear what happens. Now that you've heard that, I'm super excited to introduce the Soyuz Launcher Super Deluxe. It comes with recycled Fairchild transformers, larger everything, and even more color. I'm just kidding. I think I probably got a few people on that one. That's just a power supply from some Soyuz small cap tubes that I'm going to review soon. Speaking of, keep an eye out. I'm going to have another review out coming after this one at some point where I review the Soyuz 013 FETs and 013 tubes. They're small cap mics. I'm going to do a comparison on those. And in those files, I'm also going to split out some stems so that you can hear the tube version of the small cap, the FET version of the small cap. I'm also going to, in parallel, also pass the FET mics through the launcher in Saturate mode so you can hear the FET mics in a normal pass and the FET mics going through the launcher. So keep an eye out for that video because there'll be some more kind of Soyuz goodness, launcher goodness in that one. But what I want to do now, one last thing. So my API console back here. The way the newer API consoles at least, the way they work is that you've got, when you send channels back to mix through the APIs, all the color and the op amps and the transformers are coming from the master section. So it's kind of similar to sending your mix through something like this. You don't have transformers on every single channel on an API. So each of those channels is pretty clean and they're all going through the color in the center section of the console. So what I wanted to do, since I've already passed each of those stems from this mix through the launcher individually, I kind of thought, in theory, what would happen if I bought 16 channels of this Launcher Deluxe, put them on the inserts of my API so that each of the 16 channels has op amps and transformers from Soyuz, mix it into the API console, and then I have an insert on the master bus for the API console. I'm going to basically send all those launchered mixes into my API console, all the launchered stems, and then I'm also going to insert this launcher on the master bus of the API console. So we've got a really cool, colorful hybrid between the API sound and the Soyuz sound. So check that out real quick. I'm going to leave you with that.
Now this bad, bad blood takes a while to wash off. I